Problems only broke people have. Being broke is arguably one of the worst situations you can be in life. We talk about it all the time on this channel. The problems poor people face is definitely different from what the rich have. While poor people go through many challenges, they're not always so obvious. The only way to know about them is to be in their shoes. Some of the problems I'm about to share will make you appreciate life even more. And if you happen to be broke, you will definitely relate to what we're about to list. And make sure you watch our other videos on money management so you don't have to face these problems in your life. 1. You don't want gifts. Everyone loves gifts, right? But not the poor. They don't like getting gifts mostly because they can't reciprocate. While the holidays are a joyful time indeed where folks share gifts with one another, the holidays are one of the toughest times for those who are broke. People expect to receive gifts from you, especially if they gave you a gift. The only solution is to ask people not to give you anything, which is really awkward. For broke people, a generous hand is not a blessing, but a debt that will be hard to repay. Before you gift someone, make sure you put all this into consideration. 2. Your financial status becomes a reflection of your self-worth. When bills surpass your income, you start falling behind on payment schedules, and you can't even afford a day out with family and friends. Your self-esteem dwindles. The world has taught us that money is a measure of success, so without money we become devastated. You start feeling worthless, and most days you don't want to leave the house, thinking everyone can see your financial status written across your forehead. However, money doesn't define who you are, but when you're poor, it's hard not to let it. If you know someone who's having financial problems, it's important to let them know you still value them. Let them know your perception of them hasn't changed, regardless of what their bank account states. 3. You can't fix things when need arises. Let's look at this scenario. If a rich man's tire burst on the road, he would only use the spare tire until he gets to the nearest mechanic, where he would buy another tire. But when you're broke, if your tire gets damaged on the road, you could end up using the spare tire for days or even months until you can afford to replace it. Sometimes replacing something as simple as a tire would require you to take an extra job, or even work more hours just so you don't distort your income. The little money poor people have is for groceries and the main expenses. Solving a problem like that is more of a luxury. 4. It's hard to make new habits. Everyone advises poor people to change their habits and adopt new ways of life in order to get out of their financial situation. But do they really consider how hard it is to create new habits when you're broke? It's easy to come up with ideas for someone who is struggling financially. But most of these solutions are theoretical, and 90% of the time not practical. Someone who is poor definitely knows that they should spend smart and save money for investments in the future. But how exactly do you do that when everything you're earning barely covers all your expenses? Whenever you come across someone who is struggling to make ends meet, offer your guidance where you can, and keep your judgment to yourself. Sometimes it's really out of their hands to control their situation. 5. You always feel humiliated. Rich people are always borrowing money for their investments and projects. However, poor people feel humiliated when they ask for help. And no matter how supportive your family and friends could be, it hurts to admit you're in need. Whenever someone you're affiliated to is in need, offer your help without waiting for them to ask. And when they opt to say no, don't be disappointed or become bitter. It's not because they're not appreciative, they just don't want to be a burden. 6. You feel as though you're not meant to have fun. Most of the time, poor people will say no to invitations. If a friend asks them out, despite drinks and food being on them, chances are they will decline the offer. The mentality of a poor person is they're not meant to have fun, or rather spend money on fun activities. All their money should go towards solving their issues. They would rather their friend give them that money instead of spending it on their drinks at the bar. When you're poor, it's impossible to justify doing fun activities. But you should instead embrace any opportunity to enjoy life. Sitting home in misery could head to mental health issues. 7. You can't fill up the gas tank. Being poor can really take a toll on how you spend money. While most financially stable people would fill up their tanks whenever they go to the station, poor people can't afford this luxury. Spending $40 at a go when you have groceries isn't possible. Poor people can only fill up their tanks with enough fuel to run them till the next stop. 8. Money is always on your mind. We all think about money. Ways to make more, get more, how to spend it, and where to spend it. But when you're poor, it consumes your brain. It becomes all you ever think of. Money becomes the subject of discussion in your head 24/7. You tend to know the exact payment dates, the exact dates your bills are due, and any form of delays in income could really throw you off the bus. What poor people don't understand is the less time you spend wallowing in your problems, the more time you have to develop new ways of making more. 9. Adding water to empty containers. When the bottle of milk dries up, what do poor people do? They add water to salvage the little few drops left behind. Whenever the ketchup bottle runs dry, what do? They'll also add water to get the little remnants at the bottom of the bottle. Only poor people do this. 10. You can't always turn on the heater or AC. If you're strapped for cash, switching on the AC becomes a luxury and not a necessity. When poor people are hot, well, the best they can do is wear less clothes and drink cold drinks to stay cool. When it's cold, sweaters and blankets are their only solution. They feel guilty whenever they turn them on, and will do so when it's entirely necessary. 11. Splitting bills is an issue. Whenever poor people go for dinners with friends, they're very particular about what they order. They will stick to cheaper alternatives and only order what is necessary. All this is done in a bid to reduce what they will have to pay at the end of the dinner. So it really sucks for them when the bill is split equally, and they're stuck with paying additional costs from their friend's bill. 12. Ignoring problems is the solution. When you're broke, your answer to everything is, "I'm broke, what can I do?" Since most problems in this world require money to fix, they assume they can't do anything about it, and the only resolution is to ignore them. Financially struggling people struggle with finding solutions for problems, since they just can't afford to fix them. While it's not good to give up, not having money for the simplest of problems makes you feel defeated. 13. You can't take a sick day off. Most employees in comfortable monthly salary jobs can take sick days off as often as needed. This is because they will get paid either way. However, for people in hourly jobs, taking a sick day off means no pay for the day. If they get sick, they'll still go to work despite their situation. They would rather ignore the illness than miss out on a couple of dollars. 14. Visiting the doctor is a big deal. Doctors come with a huge price tag, especially if you don't have insurance and you live in the United States. When you are broke, doctor's appointments will be avoided like the plague. Broke people only visit the doctor when it's an emergency, and most times it's usually too late. They'll stay at home and buy cheap over-the-counter medicine, with hopes of getting better. In addition to this, most of them will often spare their medicine. By this I mean they'll stretch out their medicine so it can last longer. They won't take medication as directed, because they don't know when they'll be able to get more. This is common with diabetes patients who need regular insulin doses. They often don't take their insulin regularly, and stretch it out to the maximum, often ending up fatal. 15. They don't like weddings and events. Unlike most people who love to see a wedding invitation in their mailbox or email, broke people don't go. The thought of having to buy new clothing for the special occasion and gifts can be stressful, especially when you don't have the money. It's even worse when they're part of the bridal team. Dresses, hair, and makeup can be very expensive. Most of the time, they end up getting into debt, just so they don't miss out on their loved one's big day. So if you happen to be planning a wedding soon and have a lot of money, consider covering some of your bridal team's costs. 16. No vacations. If you're broke, the last time you went on vacation was probably ages ago. Remember we mentioned earlier that you'll feel guilty for simply having fun? Well, it goes beyond that. When most people are planning their annual or regular vacations, poor people are planning on how to spread their money across their bills. Vacations are a luxury poor people can't afford. What makes it worse is if you were once well off and now you can't afford to take yourself anywhere. 17. Wearing out clothes and shoes. It's easy to spot someone who doesn't have money. One of the ways is by what they wear. When you're broke, a pair of jeans can last for more than a decade. The last shoe was probably bought ages ago. Instead of shopping for new clothes, they can only afford thrift stores, and this only occasionally. Before you judge someone about their dressing, or them not having the latest fashion, consider what they could be going through financially. 18. They can't plan for the future just now. Making investments or buying higher quality products that will last longer makes sense, but to a poor person this doesn't matter. The amount of money they will let go in one instance and leaving some for other expenses is all that matters. This leads to making purchases on items at full price, simply because you can't afford offers, or buying cheaper items that won't last long, just because you can't afford the more durable, expensive ones. Everyone struggles in life. If it's not with money, then it's something else. It's great to always understand that problems don't last forever. Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. If you could relate to one or more things in this video, don't worry. With the right moves, you can always change your situation. We have plenty of videos on what you can do to elevate your financial situation. Make sure you watch them. That's it for today. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.